What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of Ninjacators' new weekly live event called Profits at Noon. We have opened up the room just a minute early here, as is customary, to give everybody a chance to trickle in, find that great seat. David, Fred, Jim, Paul, Venkat, it's great to see all of you. I hope you all had a great weekend. Oh, I'll leave some room for you too, Richard.
I don't know, worries. You keep going.
It's
Hello,
a task.
everyone.
It's a task getting in. Awesome. If you're joining us over on the simulcast over on YouTube, welcome. It is great to have all of you with us here today. Fred, hello. I hope you're well.
Fred.
It's great to have you back, sir. We're going to get started in just a minute here, guys and gals.
Sorry, I'm just putting my phone on silent. Almost forgot.
Sure. Quick tip, keep those phones on vibrate at the very least, especially us two in particular, but awesome. Well, we're going to start firing things up here, folks. We're about a minute after the hour, so welcome again, everyone. If you're new to these sessions, my name is Nate. Co-hosting with me is our very own Richard Krugel. Give him a wave, sir.
Hello, everyone.
And again, if you are new to these sessions, I'll give you the quick rundown. We are live 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, all at noon Eastern time. The goal here is for us to show you the levels that we are stalking in the markets. We're going to walk you through 6 of our favorite futures markets and give you what we call our levels to lock. So in addition to this great live analysis, these levels to lock are going to give you actionable analysis and trades you can copy and stalk along with us. And then, of course, we encourage you to stay with us to see it all in action, to attend these follow-up sessions, and to see how all this analysis plays out in real time. In addition to the analysis and those levels to lock, today we have a tool spotlight on deck for you. This was a request that came through over on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, I see Angel is just chatting with us. Hi, Angel. It's great to see you. We're very glad to have you here. But our good friend, for a reason, I'm not sure if he's able to make it here today, but requested the dynamic SR zones. So Richard is going to be breaking that out, rolling up his sleeves, and taking a look under the hood of everything that indicator is capable of, and then give you some actionable tips if it's an indicator you're interested in using or are already using. So lots to look forward to here today. So again, welcome everyone. Let's kick off today's Profits at Noon session. We'll bring in Mr. Richard Krugel to lead today's analysis. Take it away, sir.
Thanks, Nathan. Now, hello, everyone. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. Welcome back. Start of a new trading week. As always, we'll be diving into the ES and NASDAQ, Russell, the YM, as well as gold and crude oil. But before we do that, I just quickly want to disappear our video. I'll be back a little bit later. If you do have any questions, just a quick reminder that all information in today's session is provided for educational purposes only, and it's not an offer or recommendation to trade futures, stocks, options, or Forex. All right, with that being said, I just quickly want to talk about this week's economic calendar. Not much happening. A relatively quiet weekend out of the US, that's for sure. We got CB consumer confidence tomorrow. No real high impact ones in my opinion, except for Fed Chair Powell speaking. That is on Wednesday. And then we have the final GDP quarter-on-quarters and unemployment claims. That's on Thursday. And then on Friday, just the core PC price index. So these things don't really, in my opinion, have a big impact. So probably the one to look out for is when Fed Chair Powell will be speaking again. It'll be at 9:30 a.m. on the 28th. That's Wednesday. All right, so a relatively quiet week for the indices, as we've all probably seen. If you track these markets, they've all been declining since a couple of weeks back. Just in a bigger picture view of thing with most of these indices, Russell being a bit questionable. We'll have a look at the Russell in just a while. I'm still treating these declines as corrective in nature. All right, so also if you are new to these sessions, I do use a combination of wave phases or sequences, as I call them, as well as market geometry. which are these lines on my chart, i.e. pitchforks and channels in some cases, as well as price structure and patterns and so forth, to try to figure out where support or resistance might step in, where price might move towards, etc., and in which sequence a market is, also very importantly. So a bit of a forecasting sort of element to it as well. All right, so if we look here at the ES sort of mid-March, just before mid-March, we've been tracking this move actually during each session. We did get profits at noon. We've been looking at what, all of this price action might mean. And I've labeled this as a wave 1, 2. We had the situation where we were dealing with an expanding triangle, also something that I've almost seen a little bit late, but sort of called it in the room here when I thought that might end. And then we've seen another strong move to the upside. So we were tracking a sequence, and as you probably all are familiar with, or if you know that sorry, if we just get rid of that snap mode. I hope you can see my cursor over here. That if you have a 5-wave sequence, you typically then get a deeper correction, if that makes sense. So, we were saying for some while here, we were thinking that we were dealing here with a 5th wave up here somewhere. But just by looking at how impulsive this move has been to the upside here, I had to start thinking about alternative counts here. And the one I came up with last week is that this triangle was actually a 2nd wave triangle, and I'm talking here about the 3rd wave here. You could probably see that I've also changed these colors just so that we can get a better clue or understanding of what I mean by these counts. So I'm thinking we had a 1, we had a 2, and then this 3rd wave subdividing in 5 waves on its own, where this wave 2 was an expanding triangle, a 1, a 2, potentially a 3 that we've seen a couple of weeks back, and I'll be potentially seeing a 4th wave of that larger 3rd wave, guys. I'm not talking about a 5th wave. So it's subdividing in quite a strong bullish move to the upside. So in the overall picture, just long story short, I am still bullish on the ES. And again, like I said, I'm still treating this decline here as corrective in nature, potentially a 4th wave of that larger 3rd wave. All right. So what's really cool about this is that we can get an invalidation level here. And I just quickly want to look at what that is. Currently residing at 4215.50. Let's actually just write that in there. That is my invalidation level, 4,215.5. What I mean by that is that if this is a 3rd wave, it's still moving to the upside, has to subdivide in 5 waves on its own. Then if this is a 4th wave pullback, a minor 4th wave pullback within that 3rd wave sequence, that could potentially still see more upside, then price should not reach the 4,215 level where the end of this wave of the 3rd wave is. Hopefully this all makes a lot of sense to you guys. If not, then just please do ask questions there. But I've got a pretty clear line in the sand here. Still pretty far away from where price is, but also looking at a 4 hour, I could probably reach that very quickly. But yeah, like I mentioned, thinking we're dealing with a corrective move to the downside, maybe price is heading back all the way to this lower median line. But as long as it stays above this 4,215.50 level, this is obviously without price making a new high above these previous highs again, then I will remain bullish and I'll continue to stay with that count that I currently have on my chart. Right, and then we also got our levels to lock, which also work really well as potential levels where price might find support and resistance. With my analysis, quite often like to, view areas where you have a confluence between, let's say, market geometry lines as well as your pivot levels, or these projected ranges, as we call them. Today, not that much. Price has been below today's pivot point, 4,398.75. Try to get above it on the previous 4-hour chart. And now we're seeing some more weakness, potentially heading to S1, which is at 4,371. Not much in the way to the downside here of market geometry levels. So could potentially be that we could see I wouldn't say another more healthier decline either today or tomorrow or the remaining of this week still, and still not find support. We might see something like this happen, because you've probably seen me do this previously, where you run a line up parallel to one of your market geometry levels. And sometimes when you have an area where price, in this case, undershoots a level, sort of stops in the middle of nowhere, i.e. not at a market geometry level, it might pull back all the way to that. So we might see support today if price still going to be a little bit weaker towards S1 4,371 spot 25 a quarter. So we'll have to see what happens over here, and obviously we'll touch base again on Wednesday and Thursday and see where the market is at that moment. One thing though is this: if this is corrective in nature, it doesn't really have a nice sort of zigzaggy behavior, if that makes sense. It's sort of pretty strong to the downside. This could have been an A, maybe a B, maybe we're still going to see something like that. But in any case, when things do get volatile, quite often we've seen this where you just have one sort of directional moves to the downside, followed by immediate reversals. So very important to keep an eye on these levels. So S1 today potentially could be, and price is already almost there, could potentially be a strong area of support. Again, 4,371 and a quarter. All right, so then also with market geometry, we want to see how price behaves when it reaches this level. Does it bounce back up? Does it clear these areas that it previously found support at and then turned into resistance? And then if that does happen, one can then generally say with quite high confidence that potentially a change in direction has resumed again, or let's say the next bullish phase of the upside has started again. So again, let's see how things pan out by Wednesday when we recap things again. This brings me to the NASDAQ. I've been flipping between a shift pitchfork and a modified pitchfork, which is the same as a channel if you use the same anchor points, for a little bit of time now. And today I have to say I had to flip back to the shift. Oh, I don't know why that's not moving properly. Hang on 1 second. It's because it's probably locked. Bear with me. Yes, that is what's happening. Let's leave it at that. And let's just lock it again. Here we go. All right, so I still feel that this setting here has also got some relevance still, although price has busted above it on 2 weeks ago. The one thing I did do previously, that isn't to say that the pitchforks aren't working anymore. Quite often, like I did previously, we could just project another line like that parallel to one of the median lines. But if you look at previous occasions, price has respected it pretty well, support and resistance. Again, now we have the strong move to the downside. Last week, price nearly found support here at this dash median line, moved up. Again, a little bit above that, and now we're down again. Found support, 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 and on the current candle is now moving below there. So the next area of support could potentially be this upper median line. Like I also shown you previously, we could be sitting with a situation where price can also undershoot this a little bit, potentially by the same amount as it did over here. So whatever the case is going to be, we're obviously going to see how price reacts to these lines when it gets there, if it gets there. But yeah, it looks pretty weak here on the NASDAQ thus far. Briefly above today's pivot point, 15,091.5, and now a very strong reversal to the downside. I think if it closes on this current candle below this red dotted line, this angular one to the upside, we might see during the coming days a move towards this upper median line over here, which would be the next area of market geometry price might be gravitating towards. So S1 just been reached, and today's projected range low at 14,910, or what's actually 14,308.5. Very nearly reached there. Might act as support, but again, as also very important to use market geometry. They try to see where price and how price closed in relation to these market geometry levels. So that's a pretty large trending move to the downside. So maybe we are seeing something like this, which is just not complete just yet. and then another move to the upside. Same thing on the NQ, also treating this current decline as corrective in nature. Right, that brings me to the YM. Also here had a situation where the YM has been way weaker than the ES and NASDAQ, sort of from the beginning of the May towards nearly the end of May. And we mentioned that we're probably dealing with a WXY pattern that pulled back into a 61.8 retracement, measured from these lows around about 10th or 13th of March to this high that was around the end of April. So that was corrective in nature, reason being obviously because the price made a new high, right? Then we've seen a 1, 2, probably a third wave with a decline now, or maybe we had a 1, 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and all of this is just the start of a deeper correction. That being said, yeah, still treating this as bullish as well. This correction, obviously it's not bullish, but i.e. that we're seeing retracement against a bullish move, and also think that we could see support step in at some stage and price move higher again. You can also see our price also previously respected these median lines. This was last week Thursday, I think. Price was bouncing, and I said if we do see a break, then the next target could potentially be this median line to the downside. All right, so price being below today's pivot point at 34,037. It's been quite volatile in a bit of a range here. Just fell short of today's S1 at 33,824. And then we got S2, which lines up today with this median line sloping to the upside here, which might or might not be reached around 33,675. So, yeah, also a really good example of you're not really seeing a zigzag behavior at all. We're just seeing one sharp decline. So, you know, maybe it could be that we're dealing with a C wave of an expanding flat, and then we see another move to the upside. So yeah, a little bit I won't say concerned here on the YM or the NASDAQ or the ES, but on the YM especially, that's a very, very sharp decline. So we'll have to see again Wednesday, Thursday, when we resume our profit noon sessions, where price is at, and try to start figuring out where we need to start getting bearish here on YM or not. So yeah, let's see how things pan out by then. Brings me to Russell. Russell's also been following market geometry really well to the upside. Another instance where price overshot the market geometry area, drew a line parallel. It did so by almost the same margin. When it did so a second time around, found a resistance and moved strongly to the downside. Now, price also been stuck in this insane, crazy range for quite some time. Broke out to the upside, at which stage we turned bullish, but it didn't really last that long, right? Unless we starting to see something like this, a 1, 2, a 1, 2, and then price continuously move its way to the upside. But Russell, obviously a different indice, but it does look weaker than the ES and the NASDAQ, that's for sure. This example over here could have been a 1, a 2 sequence, a 3 maybe. So if it's starting to do this, then yeah, we might actually see price decline, potentially even break these lows that were set in May this year. But that being said, price has temporarily found support at this center median line for the time being. Price has opened today's below today's pivot point at 1,844. Was that 44.6? Made its way up all the way to today's projected range high, as well as R1 at 1859. And yeah, we also have, this is quite often what I look at, a bit of confluence between those levels to lock and this upward sloping median line that we have there. So again, if the Russell were to move higher, I would like to see it break and stay above this line with some decent momentum, and then one can say, yeah, maybe it's going to move back to this upper median line, and that's how you work with angular support and resistance. Give you a bit of an idea of where price might move next. All right, and that brings me to gold. Same thing in gold, beautifully tracked this 5-wave sequence to the upside. And then we had a very strong decline. This was sort of expected. If price were to break this market geometry level, I've been saying we could then expect a deeper decline. That has thus far taken place. Now the question is, this is a pretty strong move to the downside, right? And I think we're still busy here with a 5th wave decline, where we had 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and where this 5th wave could potentially be tracing out as some sort of an ending diagonal of some sort. All right, the shape thus far just doesn't look like an ending diagonal just yet for me. But that being said, expecting a potential 5th wave, and by that I mean the 5th wave of a much larger correction. Assuming that if this does complete, that we're still going to see a nice bounce to the upside to retrace a decent portion of this decline, but then expecting another decline that could potentially even mirror this decline at a later stage, taking gold potentially much lower. So that's still my outlook for gold. Still bearish in the longer sort of term, but also pretty aware that if we do get a bounce higher to the upside, now I don't mean by a little bounce like this, I would like to see a proper retracement of this decline. Then I would treat that as a first phase, then a second wave that could be, or a B wave of it, any correction or whatever it might be, and that it all would just potentially be a bounce in a larger bearish market that I still think is what is happening here. All right, it brings me to crude oil. Again, crude oil has been really, really messy. Very, very large range that it's been trading in. This since the beginning of May, we priced flipped a previous low, and we had this huge wick here back to the upside. And we've been tracking crude oil, obviously, with the other markets that we follow here at the Profits at Noon, but it's been extremely difficult to try and figure out what's going on here. So my thinking was, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks back, that we might be dealing with a triangle. If you're familiar with triangles, then they subdivide in 5 sequences, where you have 3-wave sequences or combinations thereof for every wave, where we have an A, a B. I still think we might actually be busy with a C. This could have been a C wave, just very short-lived in nature, in my opinion. This could have been a D wave, and now we're just doing this, and then we're going to see another decline. It could definitely be an explanation of what's going on here, but I still think we sort of in the midst of this triangle. And with price actually moving this low, as when was this, earlier today, it's starting to look that we might be dealing with a descending triangle, which is bearish in nature, and where, I won't say quite yet it's a descending triangle, but if we're going to see another move back up, and let's say it fails or gets close to these previous highs, it fails to break above these highs, and we see another decline, then I would start saying, we've got a high probability triangle. And probably then we could start deciding if we're actually dealing with a descending, where your bottom trend line is horizontal, or we're dealing with some sort of a larger symmetrical triangle. So that's a little bit too early days to say exactly what's going on here. But I am starting to work with the thinking or from the analysis side that we are dealing with a triangle here, potentially incomplete triangle, probably still some more messy price action for quite some time ahead, potentially, right? Things can change. Again, if things do not follow the analysis, they do change. One as a trader has to accept that, change your opinion, or have the guts to change your opinion, because trading's or the markets are always right, and just deal with it, and then we'll just follow along with the new price structures. So I'm working with that under the circumstances here with crude oil, looking for a potential another move higher, unless everything obviously fails here and we get another sharp decline. All right, so that is it from the analysis side, from the markets we cover, the ES, NASDAQ, YM, Russell, gold, and crude oil. If you guys got any questions, please feel free to ask. And if not, then I'll move along and cover the dynamic support and resistance indicator here, Ninjacators, for you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, as always, Richard, for the valuable information, the insights. Just always fascinating to see where you think things are headed, you know.
Mm.
As Richard mentioned, if
Welcome.
anybody has any sort of questions, anything on their mind whatsoever, whether that's here with us in Zoom or if you're over on the simulcast on YouTube, please don't hesitate. Fire away there in the chat. We'll be more than happy to address it for you before we leave here today. Awesome. Yeah. Hal, we always appreciate having you here with us. It's great. You're kind of like our tent pole, you know? So it's great
Good
to
old
have you.
hell.
Yes, sir. Awesome. Well, it looks like we'll kind of just keep things moving. We don't want to drag too much here, and Richard will dive right into the dynamic support and resistance zones indicator for our tool spotlight here today. But if you think of anything, or if anything comes up, or if you have any questions about the tool that Richard's about to share, same rules apply. No such thing as a dumb question. Don't be shy. We're here to help, so feel free to fire away in the chat if anything comes up. And on that topic of the tool spotlight, when we wrap up here today, if you have any requests for a future tool spotlight, just feel free to let us know.
Yeah. All right. So let me cover that. And this actually came from a Parisian that normally joins us on YouTube. Actually, he or she, I'm sorry if I didn't get, we are right there. Parisian might not even be a real name, but in any case, asked about 3 weeks ago for me to cover this. So unfortunately, there was a public holiday in between and so forth. But yeah, finally today we're going to look at the tool. It's one of our sort of older tools that we have here at Ninjacators. That being said, still, in my opinion, a very valuable tool to have, especially if you're an intraday trader or swing trader. Now, I've got it loaded here on a chart. I mean, can be loaded on any time frame, really. It could be loaded on any market. I just so chose to do it on crude oil today and
Attention retired.
15-minute time frame. So I'm not going to go to any indicator settings just yet, but or not really have to. But visually, you can see that we have this sort of zone on the upside here. This is what the indicator would call a strong resistance zone. Then we have one just slightly below that. I don't know if you can see that properly. It just almost looks brown on my black background, but I could probably go change that if you can't see that. But this is a weaker resistance zone. Then we have sort of a blue area in the middle that could probably be seen as a value area, if you want to call it that. And then we have a light green, or it's actually a little bit dark in this instance, where we have weak support. And then this lighter one over here that stands out a bit more. The furthest one down is our strong support zone, right? So now, what does it mean to be dynamic? As the name suggests, basically these zones change. As you can see, if I had to go back in time, you can see that these zones get narrower and they do get wider. All right, so it continuously updates itself in real time according to, price structure. If price has been moving strongly downwards in, let's say, trend, you get a bounce, you get areas of resistance, and you start getting a move lower. You would start using those areas and continuously adapt to price structure, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm just looking at my chat box here. Fred's asking, is there such an indicator for dynamic stops? Fred, I do actually think we do have a dynamic stop indicator. It might be bundled together with one of the under indicator or pro series. But basically what it does is it uses volatility to create these dots. As, let's say, market moves in your favor, you want to go long, and let's say you get a nice strong move in your favor, then it would use volatility to calculate where to safely trail your stop, if that makes sense. So there is one, I'm pretty sure there is, I just don't know what the name would be on its own, But like I said, I think it is bundled into one of our Pro Series indicators.
Sure.
All
Yeah,
right,
I
so
figured you would have the greater insight on that because in my
yeah,
mind, the first thing that came to mind was Eternal Fractal Edge. I know has a whole component to auto plot entries, stops, and targets inside those what they call the dynamic real-time money zones.
yeah, I think it's also in the Momentum Zone Pro. No,
Mm,
is it the which one was it? The volume spread scalper, I believe
mm,
it was. We have an actual button that you can hit, and it starts drawing a volume profile according to where you've entered. And then you can use your point of controls or your value areas or all that to actually use as a stop loss if you want to as well. So a little bit different. So it's not like one could say in this instance, as I mentioned with the volume profile stop, that it is dynamic in nature because obviously volume would change on a continuous basis. So we do have various tools that can definitely assist with that. That's for sure.
sure. And before I fade back into the mist here, I just want to put a note. Volume spread scalper, one of our favorites. We should probably dust that one off, bring it back for a tool spotlight again soon.
Yeah, we could definitely do that if you guys want to see it. Maybe give some hands up for those that want to see it. If
Sure.
not, then we could
Awesome.
look
Hal's
to
game.
something.
He is down.
All right, Hal's always game.
Awesome. That's why we love Hal. But I will
Ooh,
get out
I'm
of your way,
making a
sir.
note for you, Hal.
I'll get
Just have
out
to
your way.
set the date.
Oh, Scott's in too. Awesome. Okay, guys. Yeah,
There you
keep
go,
firing
Scott.
away there in the
Awesome.
chat. I'll keep an eye on the chat, but I'm going to fade back into the background here. I'll get out your way, Richard. And you
No
can
worries.
continue.
All right. So I'm just going to quickly continue here on the dynamic support resistance zones. So it is dynamic in nature. So, it does move as price moves along. As you can see, it's widening, actually contracting. So today's a really good example of where crude oil's been, and it's now looking at a 15-minute time frame in a sort of a range, right? So if you were to look at, let's say, earlier today's trading session, we had a very small sort of range. Price just made it into the weaker sort of resistance area, and it's sort of been bouncing between the weaker and it's a resistance and support area for most of the day. Now, with most of these tools, in this one, actually, we do recommend that you use pivot points with it. We also do have a pivot point indicator, what we call a floor pivot point indicator, that also can work with this. But just quickly, if I were to look at my indicators, and let's say you just want to use the normal run-of-the-mill pivot points, then you can add that to your chart. And then see if you actually got, did it actually load? No, it didn't. Sorry, it is not visible. That's why. There we go. That should work. Boom. Yeah. So what you could do is see if you have one of your pivot points line up with your support and resistance zones and use that as potential areas to target or potentially trade from. Whether you wait for example, earlier instance today, price hits it, we have a little bit of a spike up, and then we had another candle back to the upside. It's almost like what I call a flanked bullish doji pattern, and then potentially get long. Obviously, on a 15-minute time frame, just as an example, but you could probably use this on smaller time frames if you want to use your intraday strategies, if that makes sense. So there are few patterns that I like to trade when I do use support resistance areas. Very simply, we can either have a ranging market like what we've been seeing today, and where you probably want to buy low, sell high sort of thing, if that is what you like doing. Again, maybe wait to see if you have one of your pivot points lining up at one of these areas, or you want to wait for reversal candlesticks, whatever the case might be. Or what I quite like doing also is when you have a trend, you want to see an area broken, a retest, and then sort of a decline again. That's also definitely a way that you can trade things, or you can do triple tops, triple bottoms, double tops, double bottoms. So I'm a big believer in also following patterns, and how price obviously behaves in relation to your support and resistance zones. But yeah, a very, very simplistic indicator that we have here. But then again, I think what really makes it powerful is that like I said, dynamic in nature. It's not just a static thing. And obviously you don't have to go back and like trying to calculate all these zones yourself, right? So that's in combination with these pivot point levels. I just don't have that other indicator from Ninjacators loaded, but apparently that is what these guys has this tool set uses quite a bit as well. So there's a few more intraday sort of pivot points that's a little bit closer to the price action than these R1s and R2s as calculated by your normal standard run-of-the-mill pivot point indicators. So that might also potentially be used as, areas to target or to trade from, if that makes sense. So yeah, a very quick tool spotlight. Yeah, not really too much to add, to be very honest. I think the volume spread scalper we've done, when was this? Probably like a good 2 months ago. So
Sure,
it's definitely time to look at that one again. Potentially a bit more of a well-rounded sort of trading program, if that makes sense, because there's quite a few tool sets built into that.
A lot more
quite
moving
often,
parts on
there's
that one.
nothing wrong with using some of these indicators in combination with others. I actually do that all the time. Just to try to, without cluttering a chart too much, I must say, but trying to make the best decisions you probably can using the other tool sets that we also offer. So yeah, we do have that current Ninjacators Fast Track membership program that is running. So yeah, I know a lot of you guys might have some of the tools. I don't know if you actually joined the membership program, but those that do decide to do that, they'll have access to all of our single indicators, all of our Pro Series indicators. Most of the ones that I do actually cover here during the tool spotlights, except for, I think it's Robot Lab and Signal Trader Lab. For those two premium products, you can get full access to all the others as well, which I think is a really, really great offering from our side, instead of spending quite a bit for all the single indicators. You actually now get access to a whole lot of them.
Sure. Which is
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is a great opportunity. I'm glad to see that has opened up, to give people more of an opportunity to get into Sandbox, to get access to a lot more power at your fingertips, as soon as you log in. So we do have a link shared there in the chat. We'll always have that handy for you guys and gals if you're ever curious, want to look at more. But of course, obviously the dynamic SR zone, some of these others we mentioned, Richard's right on track with that. Outside of Robot Lab, Signal Trader, sky's kind of the limit there. So you get access to lots of great stuff.
Absolutely,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Well, we do, of course, want to make some room for any Q&A here before we head out the door here today. We do have some time. If anyone has anything on their mind, anything they wanted to share, any requests for future sessions, potentially even any feedback as well, we're always open to hearing that.
Do we have anyone coming in this week to join us, guest speakers?
Currently, actually, there is no one on deck just yet this week. I see I'm turning green here. Doing my best Kermit the Frog. But we have been itching to have Craig back in the house. So that's something we'll take a look at.
Follow up with them and see.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as mentioned, I think it came up in a recent session here too. What we'd like to do going into July is to start to put together weekly agendas. Just that way, as we start each week, we'll just need to, probably some feedback from you guys and gals would be helpful as well. The best way to get that to you, in addition to sharing it here in the sessions, potentially maybe even just Zoom emails for the registrants, just to give you a sense of what's going on in the week, what you can expect, align everyone's expectations. And then, of course, maybe a more rigid structure for you to be able to put in requests, maybe like a survey form where we could collect requests on that same agenda and really streamline some of this stuff and put more control in your hands. So yeah,
that would be great.
Awesome. Well, lots to look forward into in July. But of course, we still got to get through June first. So as mentioned at the top of this, yeah, at the beginning of this session, we mentioned if you are new to these sessions, we're live 3 days a week, and that's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, all at noon Eastern time. And again, in addition to all the great analysis, the levels to lock that Richard provides, you have lots of other stuff to look forward to, tool spotlights and guest speakers, live events that we'll put on your radar. So lots more to look forward to here in June. We hope to see you all back Wednesday at noon Eastern time. If you're over in the YouTube simulcast, you'd like to get in, join us directly in Zoom, what I call the VIP section. Check the description beneath the video. There's a link where you can sign up for the Zoom event. You'll get reminders and some of the stuff we just mentioned as far as some of these agendas. You'll be a bit more connected. So definitely encourage you to do so. And then, of course, we have that Fast Track membership link is still in the chat. If you're interested in learning more about Ninjacators' new Fast Track membership, definitely encourage you to check that out. But of course, in the meantime, we just want you guys and gals to have a great rest of your week. And we will see you again on Wednesday for an update on all of our levels and to see where things are headed next.
Absolutely.
Cool. Absolutely, cool. Hal. Always. Oh, go ahead, Richard.
No, just saying thank you. That's all, Hal.
Of course, yes. You too, Hal. Have a great rest of your day. Great day tomorrow, since we won't see you tomorrow, but we'll see you back on Wednesday. So, awesome. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We're going to go ahead and shut this one down. We hope to see you again, as mentioned, on Wednesday. Have a great week. We'll see you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cool, everyone. See you Wednesday. Cheers. Bye-bye.